Hello, good people. Welcome back to the Kuhb Games YouTube channel. My name is Evan, and we play goats here. We are in day 2, and this is round 8 of the goatformat.com Goat Format Championship number 22. That was a little wordy, but so woke up, got a lot of adrenaline going for this, and I see that I get paired against I Sack You to Hell. Didn't see this name till I got into Dueling Book because I have a different name on Discord, but I recognized from the stream the day before that this person is playing last turn, so immediately get nervous, start stressing a little bit. Anytime you play against a sort of a combo deck, it can be a little nerve-wracking, especially for game 1, because a lot of decks aren't really prepared to fight against decks like these, and that's why they find their niche in the meta. But I think I've got a good sideboard here, so feeling pretty confident, happy to be 5-2, just happy to be in day 2. We draw a pretty decent hand. Dust Shoot isn't bad on the play. Obviously, later game and on the draw it can be bad because the last turn deck's going to be setting a lot of cards, but it's good for taking out Jars, taking out Jowgans, Cyberstein, stuff like that early game, so not unhappy to see it here. Nobleman's not terrible. The last turn deck can set a few monsters, a few flip effects. Blade Knight's a decent clock. We only have 2 monsters, so the Blade Knight can easily be at 2,000 pretty early. Solemn Judgment, of course, just very good against all of the combo decks, and Pot of Greed is Pot of Greed. So pretty happy here. Get to go first. Pot of Greed into Dust Tornado Sasuke. Dust Tornado is pretty good. Sasuke is actually not bad. I'm fairly certain my opponent is playing Spirit Reaper at this point. So I'm just going to summon the Blade Knight because it has the highest likelihood of attacking for more damage on the next turn, and we're just gonna set the team. Do opt to keep the Nobleman in hand. Don't think my opponent is playing Delinquent Duo, but in the case there is Delinquent Duo, I would rather lose Nobleman than one of my creatures or monsters. So Dust Shoot is going to get a Spirit Reaper. We're going to reveal last turn, Solemn Judgment, Scapegoat, Level Limit Area B, and Gravity Bind. So opponent has one too many defensive cards for me here. I can deal with Gravity Bind and Level Limit, but the Scapegoat's going to slow me down. And my opponent has Solemn Judgment, so I sort of have to, think of how I want to deal with them, because they could Solemn one of my plays, though Solemn Judgment could work in a way that they don't want it to, and it could, get my opponent dead for me if I draw another back row removal. Last turn, of course, they have only one combo piece, so the last turn's kind of dead for now, so pretty alright with this. Just need to play around my opponent's stall cards here pretty well. My opponent's going to play the Level Limit Area B, and I'm just going to snap off Judgment here. Knowing my opponent's hand gives me the information that we need to plow through these. Stall cards as fast as we can, and I don't really have a whole lot of other interaction, so just get rid of the stall cards and hope we can kill the opponent. Maybe their Solemn Judgment ends up helping us out. So I think that's actually a fine play. Opponent's going to set 3. Likely keeping the last turn in hand if I had to guess. They could be... No, they're not going to keep the Scapegoat because now I guess they're not worried about the Heavy Storm because I Solemn Judgmented there. But yeah, you can see the opponent does keep the last turn in hand. I draw a Ring of Destruction, which I'm like, okay. Opponent has a Solemn Judgment. Maybe we can get there. So, going to make my Blade Knights 2000s. My opponent's going to flip Gravity Bind. I Dust Tornado it. My opponent Solemns. So, we effectively have the opponent at 2000 here. We just need the opponent to do something. Activate Wall of Revealing Light. Activate last turn. I can ring in response and we just win the game. But of course, it may take a little bit of time. The opponent might build up some resources here. We know they have a Scapegoat down as well. So the good news is they are through 1 Solemn Judgment, but if they draw more, it could be bad for me. I draw a Duo here, and I think on it for a little bit. I don't play it. I'm just going to keep my Blade Knights at 2000. So I set the Trap Dust Shoot, just so Ring can have maximum effectiveness here. And we're just going to sit here, look at each other for a bit. My opponent's going to flip Scapegoat on their turn. So they've got some goats now. We draw MST, which can hit the Gravity Bind. So a turn late here, but we do get to fire off this Duo to actually take take out 2 cards. So good on me for keeping that, I guess. We get last turn and Jowgen, so they're down 2 combo pieces now. That does tell me that maybe they do have another last turn, because I don't think you would keep 2 cards in hand there if you were going to lose all of your combo pieces. But I could be wrong. They did draw another Solemn Judgment, so they're going to Solemn this MST. So opponent's at 2,000. I elect to not activate Ring of Destruction here. I'm going to flip up Sasuke, see if I can pull out something from my opponent. So the outs here are like potential Book of Moon, 3rd Solemn Judgment. I don't know. My opponent has 1 card, so maybe I'm just supposed to go for it here. But I feel like with the ring down, and my opponent has, from what I can see, 0 combo pieces, I can just wait, because my opponent eventually has to do something, right? They have to push the issue. They've only got 1 Solemn Judgment left in their deck, so it's unlikely they're going to draw into it. So, unless it's already the set card. So, we're just going to keep passing here. I just want my opponent to push the issue, basically, is what I'm going for here. Draw a Jar of Greed, not bad. This Trap Dust shoots a little dead in hand. But one day, we could draw into a Heavy Storm. So I draw a Dust Tornado. I'm like, okay, that can deal with Gravity Bind or one of the back row, and then we can actually, you know, start getting this going a little bit. Opponent sets a back row. I actually think on it a little bit there. I'm like, am I just supposed to just flip over this Dust Tornado? But I don't think so. Now I draw Heavy Storm. So I'm like, oh, well, I can maybe push the issue now. So I'm going to go ahead and Dust Tornado the Gravity Bind. And this sort of shows, you know, I want to attack now. It also can potentially draw out the last Solemn Judgment, which is nice here, but Dust Tornado goes through. We attack. My opponent has another Gravity Bind. So now I'm like, okay. Don't think they have a Solemn Judgment, but still just going to keep passing here. The Blade Knights are at 1,600, and here's where I think I definitely made a mistake here, because, like, yeah. So now I decide to go for it. I don't know why now is the point that I decide to go for it. I think it's because I started building up cards in hand and my Blade Knights were getting smaller. But you see, I didn't set the Dust Shoot or the Sakuretsu armor here, so my Blade Knights are at 16, so this is a misplay. Again, a little bit nervous here. I had this ring play in my head the entire time, and I play the heavy. I'm like, my opponent has Solemn Judgment. They're probably going to Solemn Judgment here. Or anything to stop this heavy. They're probably going to do it now. And if they don't, then they likely don't have the Solemn Judgment, and I just win the game. So, my whole, like, brain space was taken up by figuring out how to get to this point of the game to where I can win. And I didn't set one of these cards. So, this could be a game-losing mistake. I target Blade Knight, the opponent admits defeat. So, I had the play in my head, I just didn't set the card. Obviously, that could be a game-losing misplay, and that could be very bad for me, but also, potentially not, really. Like, my opponent's going to lose all their back row there. They're going to lose their defense in the Scapegoat, and just depends on, like, if they can draw into the combo pieces fast enough, which they've got, like, 1 turn to assemble it. But still, yeah, definitely a misplay. Should have set the card first, and then everything was good. But I can forgive myself for that. I do get up after game 1, sort of walk that off a little bit, calm myself down, because, you know, got to calm the nerves and not let that happen again. Just got to tighten up for game 2 and 3. But we're going to bring in a lot of the sideboard. King Tigers are really good here. Mobius is good here. Book of Moon. I like the Magician of Faith to get back, like, Pot of Greeds to dig into interaction. Can get back to Liquid Duo, Mystical Space Typhoon, Heavy Storm, stuff like that. So, Zing, also good. Dust Tornado, also good. Got a pretty good sideboard here. Not unhappy with it. So we draw not the best of hands. Tribe is really only good at cleaning up goats here. Dust Tornado is very good. Moth, we just don't see a spell for. Blade Knight with a handful of monsters isn't great. Mobius is very good, but we really need something to turn it on to get it into play. Good thing, though, I guess, is my opponent's not going to be very aggressive, really, with the deck, unless they just have, like, turn 1 combo or something. So there's a likelihood we could just get Mobius out. Opponent draws Upstart and a Graceful Charity. Not bad. We're going to discard a Morphing Jar and an Upstart Goblin, so I think that's interesting. Discarding the jar on the play. Opponent does have Pot of Greed as well. So they've effectively hit their Trinity. Here they're going to play around Knock by summoning the Spirit Reaper and playing Level Limit Area B. I don't hate that at all. Draw Book of Moon, which is pretty good. That is protection against the combo. But I'm going to summon Tribe. And I'm going to just pitch the Magician of Faith. It's not doing a whole lot here. Just go ahead and get this Spirit Reaper off the board. My thinking was I didn't want my opponent to somehow be able to deal with the Tribe and then just start attacking with the Reaper, because I didn't know exactly what they would have post-board. They could bring in some sort of destruction effect. So let's just get the Reaper off the board. This Magician of Faith isn't doing a whole lot. I don't really need the Book of Moon twice. And at this point, like, I could sack the Tribe off. It's pretty much done its job outside of clearing Scapegoat. And I can kill my opponent's 2 back row, including the level limit, and maybe we can race from here. So opponent summons out a Sangan. That can't attack over the Tribe, so kind of like whatever, this is fine. Draw a Dust Tornado. We're just going to go ahead and get the Mobius on the board. Like I said, we're just going to keep going with the game plan here. Take out the back row. You see, I actually say negate in chat. Normally, I just hit the thumbs up button, but I actually had a judge called on me in a random ladder match because I used the thumbs up to ask if the Mobius was okay, and then I tried to declare the effect, and they're like, "You can't do that. You missed the time." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." Got sharked for 20 minutes, but yeah. Yeah, here comes the Mobius. Sangan still can't attack over it. I do have Book of Moon sort of to help out. I don't know why I don't set the Dust Tornado here. I guess my reasoning is my opponent probably does have Heavy Storm in the deck post board, so no reason to super overextend into that. So I think that's fine. They switch Sangan to defense, set a back row. Here we can throw off the Dust Tornado. We hit a card destruction, which is interesting. Nock's not gonna really come into play here, but we do get to summon the Blade Knight. And I'm like, you know, I've got Dust Tornado to interact with back row. I have Book of Moon to protect me from Jowgen. We're just attacking into the Sangan here. We've got to get aggressive. So my opponent goes and gets a Shining Angel, which I think is interesting. Shining Angel does pick up, of course, extra Shining Angels, just to sort of mitigate how much damage you're taking, but it also picks up Jowgen, so I think that's a cool choice. But we get in with our Mobius here. We've got a lot of outs to just end this game quickly. My opponent summons Shining Angel, sets 2. I decide to not Dust Tornado blind here, because I want to be able to hit a Gravity Bind if my opponent does have one. Here we draw a Graceful Charity, which is awesome, obviously, because this Nobleman my opponent has played around all game, so we kind of want to get rid of that. Here we hit level 2 and Duo. I actually get rid of the level 2 and the Jar of Greed. So I said my opponent has played around the Nobleman all game, but we're getting to a point where they're not going to be able to do that. And I would rather be able to draw into a bigger monster, because if my opponent's going to be like floating Shining Angels here, the level 2 is not going to really do anything. And if I draw into a bigger monster, I can deal a little bit of damage this turn, and then I can just fire off the Knock and be able to summon a different monster on a following turn. And we would be able to knock whatever monster that they set, if they do set, because it's going to get to the point fairly soon where they do have to start setting these monsters instead of summoning. So I don't hate this. Of course, the Duo is very good here. We're going to keep that just to cut our opponent off of resources. We are going to go ahead and fire that off, see if we can draw out like a Solemn Judgment or something. Opponent does think, so I'm like, okay, they have a Solemn Judgment. That's got to be why they're thinking here. They shuffle about 18 times. We ditch a Jowgen and a Giant Trunade, which I'm very happy to see go. Is interesting here, but yeah, we're just going to start attacking into these Shining Angels. Let's get some damage in. I'm not worried if they get a Jowgen because I do have Book of Moon. to take care of that, though I don't attack into the second one. It would have taken him down to 4,000, but I guess my reasoning here is, well, yeah, my reasoning here is, like, you know, I do have the Book of Moon, but an extra 600 points of damage isn't worth, like, potentially my opponent having another giant Trunade or something, and then just winning the game. So no reason to put the Jowgen on the board. I think that's actually a pretty good idea here. Level limit is fine. We switch everything to defense. I draw another Dust Tornado, so I have 2 Dust Tornadoes. And now I decide to just pull it back a little bit. They have the Shining Angel, so we're not really getting game here. And then I draw Heavy Storm. I'm like, okay, well, we have these Dust Tornadoes, so let's just see what we can do here. I think my opponent has a Solemn Judgment, so I'm like, maybe they'll Solemn if I kill the level limit area B. They don't. Then I Dust Tornado, hit a wall, and then I'm just going to Heavy Storm. My last is a Book of Moon, so I can, if they don't do anything, I can actually just chain this to the Shining Angel and then knock it. I put my opponent to 200 if that play goes through. And then, you know, they've got 1 card in hand. They need... it is last turn, actually. So all they would need is a Jowgen here. But, you know, putting my opponent on 1 card, they do flip Scapegoat, so that's kind of worst case, but, you know, it's fine. Now I just need them to not have Jowgen. I'm going to attack over 2 of these goats, and then we're going to knock the Shining Angel. Well, now, actually, they need more than just Jowgen because they're at 4,600, so this works out. Opponent sets 2 back row. That's fine. I'm going to Rhoda. If they have, at this point, I'm like, if they have Mirror Force, they have Mirror Force. I get Dawn's Alug because it's a dark, and there's a chance that I could draw BLS off the top, and I want that to be live, so here's Mr. Donald. Donald gets in, Blade Knight gets in, Mobius gets in for 2,400, so I'm like, okay, this is good. We have our opponent at the point, you know, they have to draw Jowgen, they have to have, like, Wall of Revealing Light and last turn. So, feeling pretty good here. I know the opponent does have Mirror Force in their deck, or could have Mirror Force in there. I don't know if they do. But I've definitely seen Mirror Force in the last turn decks. So, I'm going to summon King Tiger. My opponent's going to Solemn Judgments. Now, they're actually 100 points away from being able to activate last turn. So, the Solemn here, of course, tells me, you know, they probably have Scapegoat. But I'm going to switch the Mobius to defense because these are lethal anyway. I know they're not going to be playing something like Sakuretsu Armor or something like that. So, just going to attack with the Dawn. We get in there. We win the game. So they didn't even have Scapegoat. I'm not sure what their back row. I wonder if not, it won't let me show it anymore. That's fine. We know one of those was the last turn. Of course, we didn't know that in the game, but able to take down last turn. Round 1 of day 2, so we are currently setting at 6-2. I don't think my breakers at this point are good enough to get me into the top 8, even if I win round 9. But I want to keep the run going. Pretty happy to be at 6-2. Obviously, looking back on it, I think maybe the play in game 1 was just to go for the ring there. I think there's a good argument for just jamming it. I think there's a good argument for waiting. But I think given, you know, the knowledge of what my opponent is playing, maybe I'm just supposed to go... Maybe I'm just supposed to ring on the first opportunity when my opponent only had 1 card that can interact with it. Not sure. If you think that was wrong, let me know, of course. Always willing to learn, get better. But, yeah, able to take down last turn. So, again, 6-2. Pretty happy with that. We will back with... I can't talk. Talking's hard. Why talk when you just don't have to? We'll be back with the final round of Swiss. That'll be round 9.